Yeah, I guess I am audible now. Okay. Okay, so I'll start from the beginning. Okay. Welcome and good evening to all the listeners. I am Krishna Kanaya, final year student at Isaac. In this first live streaming session of Isaac IO, I'll be talking about some frontiers of condensed matter physics. I have prepared this talk keeping in mind the first 2 years of our department, so presumably I'll be starting from some basics and will touch upon some of the ongoing research areas in condensed matter physics, particularly two-dimensional materials. Welcome all of you in this session of IO. So first and foremost question which arises is, what is a condensed matter physics? So condensed matter physics basically studies of those phases of matter where the number of constituent particles is enormous, which is order of 10 to the power 23 or even more, and the interaction between the constituent particles is strong. What we mean by strong here is that the interaction should be strong enough so that a new property arises of out of the interaction between the two constituent particles. Here the constituent particles can be electron, atoms, molecules, they can be anything there. And also I would like to emphasize on one more thing is that the physical state of the system is irrelevant. It is not that it is not that the state should be a solid. In fact, solid state physics is one of the major sub set of condensed matter physics, but there also exists some soft condensed matter physics where we study soft biological tissues and another like semiconductor physics. Some people also study the condensed matter physics in gaseous state. So the only requirement are that the number of constituent particles should be normal and there should be interaction between them, which should give them a new property. Again, a new question arises, then what happens when the enormous number of particles, as mentioned, they come close to each other? To understand this, let us consider an atom. An atom nucleus is constituent of a nucleus and electrons move around it based on the laws of quantum mechanics. So here this electron is confined, is experiencing the force only due to one nucleus. Consider the situation when it is surrounded by some more atoms, say atom B. Then the electron of A is experiencing the force due to the nucleus of B also. Now consider again what happens if more atoms are added to the system. The situation becomes enormously complex and we cannot solve what would be the fate of electron when it is surrounded by so many electrons and interacting via the long range Coulomb force, which is 1 by r square dependent. So the basic idea here is that what is given in condensed matter, which is the amalgam of quantum physics, electromagnetic theory, and the mechanics, which gives us a tool that we by using which we can understand and study the properties of the materials which are around us. So why should we study condensed matter physics? Because the world around us is made up of enormous number of atoms and we cannot get the property of those solids without using the principle of condensed matter physics. Because it's useful, it gives us a tool which we can engineer and understand our property. Because it's deep. It's deep in the sense that we are going to get the macroscopic physical property out of the microscopic property. So if to consider all kind of interactions, all kind of quantum mechanical interactions in order to get to our points. The fourth one is which is most interesting for physicists is that condensed matters are some of the best laboratories we have. In that we can test our relativistic phenomena, relativistic quantum mechanics, relativistic theory to a great extent, which is not possible until unless we use some high energy physics or high energy colliders. So the condensed matter, some of which I will discuss in this talk, they give us excellent laboratory where we can test our theories. And fifth one, which I have already talked, is that we cannot solve the equation of motion of an electron around the nucleus, which is called the Schrodinger equation, for the real solids because there are enormously large number of interactions are there which are complex and we cannot, not even us, even the supercomputers cannot solve those equations which will give us the property of solid. So at the last, we have to study the principle of condensed matter in order to understand the world around us. One major concept which comes along with while beginning the study of this subdiscipline of physics or science is that the dimensionality of the material. This concept is defined in terms of the electron, as electrons are the major governing particles of the matter. So we will define it in terms of electron as it is the number of spatial degree of freedom which is available to the electrons in the material. So to understand this better, consider a solid, a three-dimensional solid which is around us. In that case, electron is free to move in all the directions, all the three available directions. So this is termed as a three-dimensional solid. The second one is a two-dimensional solid, which is which are newly discovered and are very new to the condensed matter community. In that case, electron is free to move in the two directions, but it is restricted or confined in the third dimension. So they are called a two-dimensional material. Similarly, moving forward like the same, we have one-dimensional material in which the electron is confined in the two directions, but it is free to move in one direction. And ultimately, we have zero-dimensional material in which electron is tightly confined within a sphere and it cannot leave that sphere. They are called zero-dimensional materials. So I will discuss some of these material in brief, and at the last I will discuss two or three major frontiers which are nowadays very much interesting and are very much developing. So the firstly I like to discuss the quantum dots, which are also known as artificial atoms. Quantum dots are formally defined as a tiny spot of matter which are so small that the electron inside are trapped and have well-defined energy levels according to the law of quantum theory and much like individual atoms. So, in order to understand this complex looking sentence, we will consider a pictorial representation of what I have already said. So, consider an atom, say an hydrogen atom, as what we have studied in our school days, is that electron is binded to the nucleus and it has some well-defined energy levels. It cannot have all the energy levels, so its energies are discretized. We say in terms of quantum physics. So it can take say E1, E2, E3, E4 energy levels. And similarly, what is observed in quantum dots is that the energy level is discretized due to the confinement of electrons inside the dot. The electron can take the energy E1, which is the lowest one here, which is called the ground state also. The first excited state is E2, the third energy level E3, E4, and so on. One major point I would like you to focus on is that the spacing between the two energy levels or the two energy states that goes on decreasing as we move further in the energy ladder. This is one of the crucial concept of quantum physics, or we can say in our school days term that the first energy level of a hydrogen atom is around 13, the second one is 10, the third one is around 3, the fourth one is around 1.5, and so on. It goes on decreasing as we climb up in the energy, up in the state of the system. This is similar kind of thing is observed in quantum dots also, and most and probably due to this also the quantum dots are also known as artificial atoms. They are not one single atom, but they behave as if they are atoms. So, moving on to some of the basic properties of these dots. The first one is, are they electrical conductors? Yes, they are, but they are unlike metals. Metals can conduct electricity whenever you apply a bias across it, from one place to the other. But in quantum dots, since the electron is confined within that sphere of the dot, it cannot leave the sphere, but it can transport electron from one side to the other, and they can act as a channel material for our transistors. But quantum dots is not, this is what for it is known for. Quantum dots are basically known for their optical applications. Optical applications are used, but the optical property what we can get from the dot is dependent on the size, or you can say the diameter of the dot. And as the size of the quantum dot that increases, the spacing between the energy level decreases. And you must have seen or heard about the gold nanoparticles, the silver nanoparticles. They are all are quantum dots. In that we get different colors depending on the size of the atom. This is a very interesting property in which is very much explainable from the basic quantum physics, is that as the size increases, the spacing between the energy levels decreases. And due to the transition of electrons from one energy level to the another, we get color. And since the energy level decreases, the difference between the energy level decreases, the energy of or the frequency of photon that is emitted from the dot, that also changes, and depending upon that we get different colors, different optical properties of that quantum dots. They are mainly applicable for sensing applications. In nowadays they are prevalent in the LCDs. They are being used in LCD instead of the CRT or the liquid crystal displays, because we can tune their property depending upon their size. And since they are small, we can get much more number of pixels in the same size as the screen. The third one, which is under developing, is the biological application of quantum dots. Basically, in the drug delivery, I must say the targeted drug delivery of from source from one part of the body to the other. Moving on to the next dimension which I have discussed. And oh, sorry. One more thing is that nowadays they are used in quantum computing. They have a potential, but still they are in the research. And I must say this is a right time to move into the quantum computing age with the new kind of materials we are getting. The second, which is the one-dimensional material, what I said before, they are the material in which they are like electrically conducting wires, but here the quantum effect influence the transport properties of the wire. Means consequence of this is that we get discrete quantum states in which have the different conductance values, and it is shown from the fundamental physics is that the conductance, which is opposite of resistance, that varies in a unit of 2 times E square by H, and it goes on increasing. So the first one is 2E square by H, the second one comes is 4E square by H, the third one 6, fourth one is 8E square by H, and so on. I would like to emphasize on one point is that here in the conductance only E and H appears, which are the fundamental constants in nature. Since this equation is derived considering the free electrons without the interaction of any other particles, and also the electron-electron interaction is neglected while deriving this conductance formula. But in real quantum wire, it depends. The conductance of the wire we get, that depends on electron lattice interaction, or in terms of the technical language of condensed matter, depends on the effective mass of an electron. It also inversely proportional to the diameter of the wire. As I have discussed earlier also, as we increase the diameter, the energy level separating the two states, that goes on decreasing, and that is somehow roughly related to the decrease in the uh, conductance, or you can say quantum conductance of the wire to the wire. And also it depends on the defect and the temperature of the wire. So moving on to the third, which is the most important, is the two-dimensional materials, which are also known as flatland materials. This is a very fancy name for 2D materials. They are been defined as the space of atoms in which electrons are confined to move in a plane with minimum interlayer transportation. They are called 2D materials, or for a physicist, they are also called flatlands. So in the upcoming slides, I will discuss mostly about these 2D materials, their application, and how much we have gone through in developing the technology and basic research in understanding these kind of materials. So the first one which was discovered and which caught the interest of many people is graphene, which is a flagship of 2D materials nowadays. It was initially hidden at the plain sight. I, what I mean is that it was present all over, like in coal, in every carbon material, and mostly uh, familiar example which is given always, it is that it is present in the pencils. But when it was discovered by A.K. Gaim and K.S. Novislov in 2004, the whole research community, that the interest of the research community shifted towards these kind of materials, and everyone looked at them with a surprise. And after that, due to the this exciting discovery, many people have led many discoveries, and still some new physics, some new frontier is discovered in 2D materials. So I would like to discuss why 2D, two-dimensional, in which electron is confined to move in two spatial directions, is so exciting field in condensed matter. Firstly, is due to the electrical property. By electrical property, I mean is that all kind of electrical properties ranging from metallic, semiconducting, insulating, these exist in two-dimensional forms. Graphene is said to be a metallic. It is a highly metallic conductor. Molybdenum disulfide, tungsten disulfide, black phosphorus, they all are they all are semiconductors. Just a second. Yeah. So they all are semiconductors, and hexagonal boron nitride, that lattice is similar to graphene, is an insulating. So similar to what we see in three-dimensional materials, like we have some metallic conductors like copper, silver, gold, semiconductors like silicon, germanium, insulating like diamond, we have mica. So we can get a correspondence between the 3D materials and the 2D materials. The second one which comes is the optical properties of these 2D materials. Depending upon the band gap, we can get we can have optoelectronic transitions in this kind of materials. The third one, which is quite interesting, is the physical properties of these materials. Is that they are very thin, since sorry, since the electron is confined to move in two dimensions, and also the thickness of the third dimension is of the order of nanometer, which I mean is less than 100 nanometers. So 2D materials are very thin, They have excellent thermal conductivity because the movement of electron in this kind of materials, I must say of graphene, is very fast, or the drift velocity is of the order of 10 to power 6 meter per second, I must say, because they have high mobility also. And also one thing which one everyone is looks for is the strength of these materials. They are thin as well as they have a strength. In addition to that, they have all kind of metallic, all kind of electrical property we can derive from them. So this is why these kind of materials are quite interesting to us, because we can shift our whole 3D world to a two-dimensional world owning to this property. And one more thing, like alloys, what happens in 3D, we can form what so-called alloys of 2D materials also by placing one layer of the material on the top of other. They are basically known as heterostructure. So my purpose of this slide was to get a correspondence between a three-dimensional world and a two-dimensional world. This shows that with intense research and engineering, we can shift all our devices, we can miniaturize them to lower dimensions in coming future. So the potential application of this kind of materials is in the two aspects whatever I have divided, that is in the application point of view. In the second one, I must say from the fundamental research point of view. From the fundamental research point of view, 2D materials, they are excellent tabletop laboratories. As I have discussed previously also, that we can test our theories of relativistic, classical or quantum mechanics in these kind of materials. These are firstly tested in graphene because the speed of electron, or I must say the drift velocity of the electron in this material is around 10 to power 6 meter per second, which is quite close to the speed of light. So the electrons in graphene, they behave as relativistic particles, and we can test our theory in these kind of materials. The first and from the fundamental research, I will discuss one or two topics among them in my further slide. Nowadays, research is mainly focused on the thermoelectricity and twistronics, these two kind of fundamental research. Twistronics is the study of the phases of matter, what we get after aligning two different layers with a twist between them. I will discuss twistonic in my further slide. The, the first one, which is thermoelectricity, means we can get electricity by applying heat to the material. This is quite common in our 2D materials, like what we have studied from the fundamental point of view are Peltier effect, Seebeck coefficient, Seebeck effect. These all can be tested in these two-dimensional materials also. And recently, superconductivity is said to be discovered in 2D materials, in thin films, as well as in twisted bilayer graphene. And also I have discussed that these 2Ds are a relativistic system. In case we can test our relativistic phenomena in this kind of material. From the application point of view, these materials are potential to be exploited for electronics, in automobile industry, and in energy storage. For electronics, we need since we have semiconducting 2D materials as well as highly conducting graphene 2D materials, we can combine these properties to get efficient electronics. But the second part which comes is of neuromorphic computing. Neuromorphic computing, as the name suggests, neuro and morphic means it's like the neurons in our brain. So some kind of application of 2Ds we found in neuromorphic computing also. And also it is found that adding these particularly graphene in our automobiles, in our cement factories. It increases the strength of our materials. For energy storage applications, these are harnessed for storage in cells, in batteries, and also in solar cells. In the slide, I will discuss some one or two four frontiers which are recently what you can say a hot topic in 2D materials. They are neuromorphic computing and twistonic. So coming on the neuromorphic computing, what is that? Is that neuromorphic refers to computing like human brain. Means human brain computes as it stores the data as well as it performs some computation on the data it receives. We think as well as we remember simultaneously. So considering the high density of neurons, it is said that approx 10 to power 10 neurons are present in a human brain, and each neuron is connected to 10 to power 4 means 10,000 more electrons. Such a high density of neurons, it is needed that the material what we choose to mimic the functionality of brain that should be small enough and capable enough to perform like a neuron. This has been tried earlier with silicons, but silicons cannot be miniaturized below say 5, 5 to 6 nanometers. But recently, a channel length of 4 to 5 atoms has been discovered for an by scientists which can act as a transistor. So we can miniaturize our transistor back to 4 or 5 atoms thinner. So that is why these 2Ds, they are 2Ds and I must say the quantum wires, they are going to revolutionize our world by their application. So where we are now in this neuromorphic computing, as everyone says that we can do to a large extent and we can revolutionize our world, but what we have done till now. So experimentally, a single artificial synapse has been developed by many groups across the world. This was first developed in silicon transistor and later in 2D materials, and it is proposed that n by n array can be developed from these 2D materials. But I must say it's a long way to go in this field. And also I must say that there are a lot of opportunities in this sub-discipline of condensed matter where a new generation can come and put their hands for the development of neuromorphic energy efficient computing. The second one which I have mentioned about is twistronic. It's a very new field which was recently developed back in 2018. It depends on the angle between the two layers of the 2D materials. It changes the electrical property of the system. Means if I have one layer of graphene and a second layer, and if I align them at a particular angle, it has been discovered that at 1.1 degree, that is also a magic angle, the properties of the system, the twisted system, the two layers, they changes enormously. Means we we can tune their property by applying a band gate bias, that is an electric field, and it has been observed at 1.2 Kelvin. Up to 1.2 Kelvin, a superconducting phase appears in this kind of material. This newly discovered subdiscipline is also important from the fundamental point of view is that it can be a system from which we can understand the emergence of superconductivity in different kind of solids, especially in high temperature superconductors like cuprates and other. And also, it has been speculated that we can discover room temperature superconductivity, which is a very hot topic these days, by using the concept and understanding we get from these twistonic systems. Recently, many groups are working and they are getting new physics, new fundamental discoveries. But one major challenge in this kind of simple systems, I must say, is that aligning the two layers of the 2D material is extremely difficult. And getting at 1.1, that is a magic angle, that is very rare. So apart from that understanding, getting this kind of systems is very difficult till now. And but we hope that we will get some methods by which we can fabricate these kind of devices easily. So the major challenge in the new era of condensed matter, that is governed by the use of 2D materials and nanowires, or I must say the low dimensional materials, the first and foremost is the fabrication of a good quality sample. Nowadays, for experimentation and fundamental discovery, small size samples, they are most popularly obtained by mechanical cleaving the two layers from a bulk. So what happens is that we take a scotch tape as it is shown by the two green planes, and we exfoliate from the bulk a low dimensional or some thin flakes of that material, and we use it for our experimental experiments and experimental discoveries. But for the commercialization of those kind of devices, of all which I have discussed, it is essential that we should be able to produce it in bulk. One of the major technique which is used for bulk production of low dimensional material is the chemical vapor deposition, in which for this I have shown for the graphene. The similar happens for other 2D materials like molybdenum sulfide and HBN also, is that we pass the constituent. Here is the methane which contains carbon. We heat the substrate, and at a particular temperature and pressure we get graphene on the substrate. There are two demerits of the chemical vapor deposition method. First is that the sample size obtained is very small, means it's larger than what we get from mechanical cleavage, but it's smaller than what we need for the fabrication of chips, microprocessor, and other stuff. And also the second most influencing, or I must say, the second demerit of this chemical vapor deposition is that the layers of the graphene we obtain, they are filled with defects. We cannot get as cleaner, as pure sample as we need for our applications. Although mechanical cleavage gives a high quality sample, but the size of sample we get from mechanical cleavage is small. So we need uh, play down between chemical vapor deposition and mechanical cleavage, or we need some new technology which can give us in bulk the large area two-dimensional materials. Recently, some groups have developed some techniques, but still a long way is there for the commercialization and bulk production, and most importantly, the cheap production of these kind of materials. The second challenge is there that we have to compete with the mature and existing technology that is governed mostly by silicon. Silicon technology is cheap, that is reliable, that is cost effective, and we have all the stuffs which are needed to fabricate them. So speculation is that the technology which we develop for this new dimensional or low dimensional material, that should be similar to the existing technology, so that we can have a correlation between the low dimensional material and the existing technology of silicon to enhance our performances. And so at the last, I would like to discuss, so where are we now? after these 2 decades of intense research in low dimensional or 2D materials, what we have done, what we have got. So, at the research point of view, there is intense research that is going on in this field. Approx more than 10,000 papers every year are published in these dimensions in 2D materials. Nearly 700 2Ds they are predicted to exist in nature, but still many more have to be experimentally exfoliated, and experimental discovery is still there. Third one is that we are discovering new quantum phenomena in these kind of systems. Recently, what I have discussed, that twistonics is discovered, and we cannot say what new we are going to get in this kind of field, because this low dimensional, they are somehow we are probing towards the sub microscopic particles, and we are getting our results out of direct interaction of those subatomic particles to the crystal lattice. So it is expected that we can get much more physics, much more interesting physics in this kind of material. The second one, at the industrial scalability of this, recently microprocessors and CMOS chips based on graphene and carbon nanotubes that has been discovered. A 16-bit microprocessor has been recently developed by uh, some companies. I forgot the name, but they have used some 1400 carbon nanotubes as a transistor, and they have built that microprocessor. The second one is built by IBM, a CMOS chip, which is using graphene as a channel. The second one developed by IBM is not much of what 2D materials are known for, because graphene is a metallic conductor. It's metallic in nature, but for computation and storage of data, we need something of the kind of semiconducting nature of channel. So a long way to go for the industrial scalability of this low dimensional material, but I must say that at research point of view, we are moving forward, and with the hope that within the half of this century, we must get something reliable out of this 2D material. So concluding the talk, what we have learned is that what we call the low dimensional materials means those kind of materials in which the spatial movement of electron that is confined in one or more than one direction, and depending upon that we get 2D, 1D and 0D materials. And what are nowadays the four fronts in 2D materials? They are basically governed by the thermoelectric measurement, the neuromorphic computing, the histronic that I have recently developed, and the spin study of these kind of materials. And also, in order to get something reliable out of our study, we have to overcome some of the technical challenges before which our physical world is going to be revolutionized. And there is a quote which I must say, that carbon is not just the stuff life is made of, but it's also the stuff our future is going to be built on. That's all, and thank you.